Ooh, hey guys, what is this? Just now I was, scrolling on my phone and I came across somebody posting a plant care opinion or tip and trick that I really disagreed with. It had me down a rabbit hole thinking about opinions that I have that people maybe disagree with that probably are unpopular opinions, but that I very strongly stand by. Had to come down here and film a video. I thought it would be really interesting. And before we get into it, I think it'd be really fun if everybody leave one of their unpopular planty care or plant collecting opinions down in the comment section. I'm really interested to read through them and see what of your opinions you feel are unpopular and see if I agree or disagree with any of them. So yeah, leave that comment. I think it'll be really, really fun and I'm looking forward to reading through all of them. Anyway, basically, I'm just gonna be sharing with you what I feel are my 10 most unpopular opinions in relation to plants and plant care and plant keeping and plant collecting. I don't think they'll offend anybody, but if they do, that's not my intention. So I'm sorry, we can all do what we feel is best in our plant journeys. Okay, let's get into them. I'm nervous, but I'm so excited. Okay. Plant listings with the word rare in the title are super annoying. If any of them were gonna offend anybody, I think that was gonna be it. So might as well just get it out of the way. On that same note, I also think it's really annoying when people sell plants by pot size. Reason being, you can take a little tiny, plug this size plant, put it into a 6-inch pot and call it a 6-inch plant when in reality, it's a plug. Not all the time, obviously, people aren't always taking advantage of that, but I have bought plants a few different times where the seller was definitely taking advantage of buyers or me in those cases by saying it was a larger pot size than it really was. And really, you can charge more for larger plant sizes. But just because a plant is listed as a 6-inch plant in a 6-inch pot doesn't mean it's a 6-inch plant. You know what I mean? I find that very stupid. Not in all cases, because obviously not everybody's taking advantage, but we should try to avoid doing it by pot size, I think. This one maybe isn't as unpopular of an opinion, but I definitely think it's still on the less popular side, and that is that it's totally okay to fertilize through the winter. Not all plants need a dormancy period, and as long as your plant is showing new growth, it's okay to fertilize. I know a lot of people say to cut back on fertilizing in the winter, which I kind of agree with, but really, especially if you live somewhere in a cold climate where your plants aren't gonna grow as much, they aren't gonna need watered as frequently. So if you still continue fertilizing every time you water, since you're watering your plant less frequently in the cooler months, really you're cutting back on watering, but I do think it's okay to continue fertilizing through all of the months. Unless it's a plant that goes dormant, of course, that's the exception to my opinion rule. It's okay to fertilize in the winter, in my opinion. Next up is that it is okay to take the leaf off of a node when you're propagating. I know this one is a pretty unpopular opinion because I got so much heat on this in one of my propagation videos, but it really is okay. It's also okay to leave the leaf on, but I just think it's okay to take it off too. It's okay. Okay? On somewhat of a similar note, it's okay to cut your plant completely back, and in some cases, I actually think it's beneficial to do this. An example being this Monstera plant, which you will be seeing on screen now. This plant had thrips, it just was not doing well. I cut it completely back to the soil, and the nodes that were underneath the soil grew and have formed this beautiful large Monstera, which is just doing so much better than it was before. Another example is my Syngonium podophyllum albo. This one got thrip also, actually, that's weird. And I cut it back because I didn't really want to deal with it. I just wanted to treat the soil, and grown back really beautiful. And actually the variegation looks better than it did before I cut it back. And the spider mites are gone because there was just less foliage and less of a plant for me to worry about disinfecting. I do think that there are scenarios where it's okay to cut your plant completely back, and I know people disagree with me on this one. Every time I mention doing this in a video, someone yells at me, and you know what, it's fine. perks of the job, am I right? But it's okay to do that, I think. I do. I really do. I think it's best to avoid purchasing large plants unless they're from like a private collector. I guess I'm more so talking about like importing large plants or buying large plants for like too good to be true prices. For the most part, again, there are exceptions because of course, sometimes people are just super giving and sell their beloved large plants for cheap. But I do think that this trend for people to want to own the largest plant does cause a lot of poaching issues, and buying a smaller size plant, it's less likely that that small size plant was poached from the wild. I can't see this one being an unpopular opinion because of course there are exceptions to this. You can buy large plants, of course. I've bought large plants. I just think it's better to not, especially when importing or buying from shops that import. Oh, I don't want this to sound like shady because I'm totally not shading anybody. I just think we don't really know where the plants are coming from. And in fact, I'll just tack onto this. There are places you can import plants from that are like reputable and you know the plants aren't taken from the wild. But in a lot of cases, it's really, really hard to know if the plants you're importing are wild grown. I just think it's best to avoid at this point. And I have imported in the past. You guys saw it in one of my videos. That is the last time I imported. The more I started to think about poaching, the more I realized that that could cause problems. And it's just so hard to know if where you're buying from really doesn't poach. People can say they don't, but we don't really know. Yeah, that's kind of my unpopular 2-for-1 opinion. This next one is kind of one that I feel is becoming more commonly shared opinion, but especially like a year ago or even a couple years ago, it was like super taboo to say this, but I think it's okay to kill plants, and especially as a beginner, it's okay to kill plants. The first time you're keeping any certain type of plant, it's okay to kill them, and yes, it's going to hurt. It's gonna really hurt and it does suck, but I do think that trial and error is the best way to like learn about plant care. I've killed many plants in my day, and each time a plant has died, I've made a mental note of why I killed or what happened to kill that plant. And I've done better with that issue or care thing that caused the death going forward. So really, the scenarios where I killed a plant in my own personal collection from my own personal care habits has taught me more than anything I could read online, anything I could watch on the internet. Like, it really does suck, don't get me wrong. I do think it's one of the better ways to like learn about plant care. That is one that is definitely becoming more like popular opinion, more or less unpopular, I guess. More okay to say. So this one, I do think it's okay to not have drainage. I know, right? But I really think it's okay. A lot of my plants don't have drainage and they do just fine. It's just a matter of knowing to tweak the care you're giving it, particularly in how much you're watering it and how frequently you are, what's the word? Aerating the soil or like tossing the soil in a no drainage pot versus one with drainage. So I do think it's okay. Don't hate on anybody that has their plant in no drainage, because guess what? That plant can be totally healthy. People can kill plants with drainage, people can kill plants without drainage. It's just a matter of knowing how to tweak how you're caring for the plant. Again, I think this is another controversial one, but I don't think there's a situation where it's okay to price shame someone for the amount they decide to sell their plant for.
As I'm editing this, I realized I maybe like misstated or misspoke what I meant by this, because I think it's okay to question and like speak on overall price trends and like want to make certain expensive plants available to the masses. Like, of course, we have to talk on trends to be able to make that happen and acknowledge that it's happening. But I don't think it's okay to like harass an individual. I just wanted to clarify that because I do think I stated my real thoughts on it a little bit poorly in the video, and it may come off a way I didn't mean for it to. I absolutely do think like rare plants are becoming a classist thing where they should be attainable for everybody, but the way to like solve that isn't necessarily bullying individual sellers. It's more so like speaking on the trend and not buying expensive plants. Like that's what it comes down to. If enough people aren't spending a lot of money on those expensive plants, then prices will go down. I'm kind of getting off on a tangent a little bit. Maybe I should do a video talking about this, but yeah, I hope that came off the way I meant for it to. Yeah, just wanted to clarify.
If you don't like the price of a plant, like just don't buy it. That's my opinion. I understand where people are coming from when they like price shame or say somebody's charging too much and it's becoming a like classist thing. I do understand where people are coming from with that, but if a plant is priced too high, like odds are you're gonna be able to find that plant from somebody else for less. And where plants aren't a necessity and there are super affordable plants, like I don't think it's okay. I really don't. I really don't. If you don't like the price, like don't buy the plant. And last up is people repot their plants way too much for the most part. Some varieties, okay, maybe need to be repotted more frequently than others, but for the most part, I do think people repot their plants a little bit too often. Of course, I also go the other way and I move my plants into larger pot sizes too infrequently, but it seems like plants like to be a little bit more root bound. That's totally my experience, my opinion. Again, we can agree to disagree. If we disagree, we can talk about it down in the comments, but just because your plant is having an issue of whatever kind, yellowing leaves, or I don't know, whatever the issue may be, doesn't necessarily mean that repotting the plant is going to fix the issue. And just because the roots are starting to poke through the bottom of the pot doesn't necessarily mean that root system has filled the pot. I do think people repot too often, and I'm saying that knowing full well I don't repot some of my plants often enough. Scindapsus pictus exotica, as an example, has needed to be repotted for the last like entire year, but repotting doesn't solve that many issues in your plant. It can be the cause of issues, but I don't think it's a cure-all like some people seem to think. Those are my 10 unpopular, controversial, maybe even plant world, plant care, plant keeping, plant related opinions. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of them down below. Like, we can totally have a discussion if we disagree. It just has to be respectful. That's all I ask. I'm excited to read the comments. I'm also a little nervous, but mostly excited. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.